everyone, Fru here. Welcome to today's lecture. So guys, in today's lecture we're going to be continuing on a journey to studying Python. And so we're on module 1, Python basics. And for today we're going to be looking at strings. In the last lecture we saw working with numbers in Python. So today's lecture would be focusing a lot on strings. So I'm going to click on that. So this is GitHub. If you want to get access to this, you can click on my GitHub account and you can clone the repository and you're going to get access to all of the contents. Let me move this aside for a little. All right, so what is it we're going to be looking at today? Quite a bit. All right, so for strings, we're going to look at working with strings in Python, concatenating strings, formatting strings, printing strings, using some built-in functions that Python has available for strings. How can we string together functions? Also very important. Checking if a value is a string, working with string arrays, string slicing, string placeholders, and then Boolean strings. So it's quite a bit of content, guys. We're going to be covering this. Strings is one of those things that if you're doing any form of programming, you one way or another you're going to come across strings, and it's very important that we have some good mastery of it. And this lecture we're going to dive in with a lot of hands-on exercises, so we can get a lot of practice working with strings. By the end of this, you are going to be an expert at everything strings related when it comes to Python. So as always, we're gonna switch over to my my PyCharm environment. So this is the development environment we're gonna be using, and this is where we're gonna be writing the code. Let me just reduce this a little bit and put this on the side. So this is the environment we're going to be working in, and this is where we're going to be writing and building the code. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead, pull from my Git repo just to make sure that everything that I have is on par with what I have in my Git repo, because I cannot commit from different machines. So last time we saw numbers. We went through numbers. We did a lot of exercises on numbers. So if you haven't seen those exercises, guys, just go on my channel somewhere. You're going to see a lot of those exercises. And so for today, we're going to be diving in on strings. And these are the same concepts that I just mentioned a little bit earlier we're going to be covering. And by the way, the code for this is all written. So if you want to get hands-on, or if you want to take this code and execute them on your machine, you're very much welcome to do so. But in this exercise, what we're going to do here is we're going to start with a blank new canvas. That way, we can go ahead and write all the codes ourselves. So if you want to follow along, you can definitely follow along with the task we are doing. So strings. All right, the very first exercise that we have, the very first concept, and I'm going to type this on the screen here, is going to be concept 1.3.0, and this just talks about working with strings. Very basic, guys. This is like the hello world of strings, super easy concept. And how do we play with strings? So how do we work with strings? If this is the first time you're seeing strings, then it's really super easy to pick up. So what I'll do is I'll start with a variable, and we covered variable in some of the previous lectures, and I'm gonna set it to a value. So say my name equals Fru. That's basically it. So we've taken that variable, my name, and we've set that name to equals Fru. So very straightforward, very easy. All right, we know when you say string, it just means that any text that you put in quotes, right? Like I start with this quote and I end with this quote. Basically, that's a string. In Python, that's a string. Alternatively, I can use single quotes like this. That's also a string. All right. So my name equals Fru is the same as me using double quotes for that. All right. So you can use whichever one makes sense to you. I typically like to use the double quotes, but you can use anyone. All right, so let's go ahead and print my name. All right, so that code just ran, and if I see down here, I've printed Fru. Very basic. This is the easiest string program I believe you can write, right? Just take a string, put it onto a variable, and print that. Very, very easy. All right, but it'll be very trivial if this is all we do working with strings. So this takes us into the next piece of the lecture. Let me close that. It takes us into the next concept in the lecture, which we're going to be covering. And the next concept would be 1.3.1, and in this one we're gonna talk about string concatenations. All right, and what does that mean? Joining two strings. That's basically what string concatenation means. So how can we take a string? It's one thing to just take a string and print it to the screen. Very easy, very straightforward. I would say trivia for the most part. Now, if you have two strings and you wanted to print it to the screen, how can we go ahead and do that? And that's where string concatenation comes into play. All right, so the exercise I will have here is I'll provide my name and I'll provide my age, and the goal is to take my name and to print a greeting to it. So you want to say, hey, my name, you are so and so years old, right? So basically greet me with my name and my age. So to do that, let's start with our variables. My name equals through, my age equals 30, and I'm putting this in quotes here, right? The 30 is still in quotes, so this is treated as a string, and I'll talk about this a little bit later. So just pay attention to what we're doing here. A little bit down in the further concepts down, I'll explain why this is very important that we have this in quotes. All right, so now I need to go ahead and to print. I need to print, you know, something on the screen that says hello through you are so and so years old. All right, so how do we do that? We're gonna have to join the string. So what I can do here is I can come and do a print. Now within my print, I can say hello, and instead of just putting my name in there, I'm gonna replace that with this variable here, which is my name. All right, so I'm gonna say hello, my name. All right, so this is string concatenation. Now I'm saying print hello and then attach my name to it, and my name is now going to be replaced by this value through. So this should say hello through. All right, so let's just check that to verify that we're doing things correctly. So hello through, this is the core of string concatenation. You take one string, which is this one, you take another string, which is this one just being replaced by a variable, and now we can concatenate them so that the code can print hello through. All right, now we can take this even further. We can continue and say hello through plus you are space, and then I'll put my age. Now I'll replace this with my age. Let me zoom in here so we can see everything on the screen. So my age. All right, and years old. All right, so this is even more string concatenation. So we've taken hello, my name, plus you are, my age, years old. So this should print hello through you are 30 years old. All right, and we can verify that. And now we have our Python code printing this on the screen, hello through you are 30 years old, right? So there you have it. Now you can start taking strings like the way we have it here, concatenating them together and printing greetings for people, right? Very basic, simple Python code, but it's something that can be very valuable to you, right? Let's say we want to replace this with Mary, right? And then let's say Mary is 50 years old. We can say hello Mary. Now we're simply just changing our variables and passing that into the print function. So this should say hello Mary, you are 50 years old. All right, so now we've seen how we can take strings, two strings, and we can concatenate them, right? Sometimes this is just, the short form for this is concat. All right, so that's what is called string concatenation or string joining, or you're taking two strings and you're able to join them. All right, very, very important concept. Now this takes us to the next concept, which will be, so instead of concatenating strings, and this takes us to 1.3.2, we're going to be looking at another concept here, which is very, very important, and this will be string formatting. All right, let's say printing new lines. Let's say instead of me just printing hello Mary, you are 50 years old, right? Or hello through, you're 30 years old. I wanted to print hello through in one line, and then in the next line I wanted to print you are 30 years old or you are 50 years old. So I wanted to tell my string to format it and to print into a new line. Within Python, we're all able to do that, and this is what this concept is going to be going over. So before we look at this, I'm going to go ahead comment out this piece. All right, and let's just copy this code from here so we can reuse it. All right, let's change our name from Mary to Fru, and we change the age from 50 to 30. All right, so let's go ahead and run this piece of code. So hello Fru, you are 30 years old. Very straightforward, the same thing that we've done. Now, what do we want to do? We want to go ahead and print this piece on a new line. All right, and the way we do that is we can inject certain characters within a string that tells Python when it's doing the printing to either print in one line or to print in the next line. And you can imagine there might be reasons to do that. In like an example here, right? I could print hello, my name, and the next one I want it to be in a different line. And the way Python does that is you can now put the full stop here, right? And say the backslash n. All right. What this tells us is, or what this tells Python is, let's make this uppercase. All right, this is a special character within Python, and when Python sees this, it says it's gonna print this one out, and then it will go to the next line. Let me move that space, and then it will say new line. This simply tells the Python go to the next line to print this. All right, and then it's gonna go down one line, and then it's gonna print UR, and then it's gonna use my age and print it out. So let's actually take concat out of this, maybe put new line here. All right, so if we run this, we should now see two lines, right? Hello Fru, full stop, right? It stops here, and then it goes to the next line. You are 30 years old. All right, so very, very powerful concept. We can now start taking, right? We can decide that, well, let me say I wanted this years old to be, and in another line, it's gonna keep breaking that or into a different line. All right, hello Fru, you are 30 years old. So this is the way that we can begin taking strings, putting special characters in them, and we're able to take a string and print it into many different lines. So imagine you were writing a poem, and that poem was a string, and you know that you have each line within it, right? You don't want to print everything in one line, right? So you want to read one line and then print to the next line. You can start using special characters like next line within Python to format your code so you can print it to new lines. Another very powerful concept. Now, this takes us into concept number 1. So this takes us into the next concept, which will be, I want to make sure that we're getting the exact number here. Bear with me. 1.3.3. All right, so now we're looking at the concept 1.3.3, and in this case we're going to be looking more at printing strings with double quotes, right? So I want to print a string, but I want it to be in double quotes. So let's comment this out and comment that out. All right, and then let's go ahead, copy same code here so we can reuse. And in 1.1.3, in 1.3.3, how can we print a string with double quotes? All right, just to give you an idea, what I want to do is I want to print, like, say, my name is Fru, and I'm 30 years old. All right, so I want to print something like this. But if you're observing, you will notice that how can I print a string with double quotes on it, where if I put double quotes on it, it's going to tell Python that this is a string, and this can get really confusing. All right, let me actually show you how. Let's just take out the next line here. Let's say we run this code that we ran before. It's print hello Fru. All right, you are 30 years old. Very straightforward. Now, this Fru has been put in double quotes already, but I want it to print with the double quotes on it. How can I force Python to add a double quote on this when doing the printing? All right, if I come here and I just say, all right, one more double quote to this, and if I try to run that, all right, you see Python doesn't really like it, because what you imagine is that, well, Python is going to see this, right, as a string, and then put it inside a string and print that, right? That's what common sense would tell us. But for some reason, that's not the way the syntax allows us to do. All right, but we're all in luck because Python still gives us a way for us to do that. So if I wanted to force double quotes behind any strings, all right, what we can do is let me show the example here first. I'll show it for years, and then we're gonna go ahead and show it for the strings. So what you can do is, let's go ahead, put a forward slash and a quote. All right, so that will be the starting of the quotes, and we're gonna put the quotes on years, and then forward slash, and then that. All right, so what this would do is it's gonna print hello through UR, and then years would be in double quote, right? So what this forward slash, if you notice the color here has changed, is telling Python, right, don't treat this as a string. When you print this out, make sure that you enforce putting this quote before this whatever is here, right, and then putting this one after, right? So forward slash a quote enforces that Python should print the quotation. It shouldn't treat it as a string. So if I run this, you'll notice that now it prints hello through you are 30 years old. All right, so that's the way Python allow us to do it. But I know you guys are saying, but why am I doing it in here? I really should be printing it on the variable here. All right, that's no problem. We can still do it without any issue. So what I can simply do is I take that, bear with me, I just copy that. Let's do Control X. All right, so I can copy that. If I come here, I'm just gonna put my let me actually just type it instead of trying to do that. All right, so I'll just do it before my name. All right, and then I'll do it backslash bam right after my name. All right, so now it's gonna take hello, and then through, this is telling it that whatever is in here, put it in double quotes. This will be the start of the printing quote. This will be the end of that quote. All right, and then it prints everything after that. So let me go ahead and take this out. So if we run this code and check it out, all right, so there you have it. Hello through, you are 30 years old, right? As you can imagine, in English, there might be situations where we want to put things in quote. You may be quoting somebody. You don't want to just not be able to do that. So Python gives us the way to do it, and that's by using the special characters, which is, this backslash and then quote around anything that you want to enforce that quote, right? Let's say you wanted to do that. All right, you see how that prints out. So it prints a single quote instead of a double quote. So you simply just replace this with whatever you wanted to print out on that. So very interesting. I hope this all makes sense for us. This can really be very handy if you're working with strings. There's a lot of formatting that might need to happen, and it's important that we know these special characters to use. All right, so these are some ways that we can work in strings, but now this would be a great segue into our next concept that we want to cover in here, and I'm going to copy this, which would be 1.3.4, and what we'll be looking at here for 1.3.4 would be many string built-in functions and how to use them. All right, so we're gonna look at the built-in functions for string that are available within Python and how you can go ahead and use them. There are many of them that are out there, and this particular concept will be exploring all of those. So let's make sure that we just let me get the screen ready here. Let's make sure we push everything to the top. All right, so 1.3.4 many string built-in functions and how we can use them. Here above in the previous concept, 1.3.0, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, we were just seeing how to print out strings, concatenate strings, format strings differently, next line, quotations. All right, we can all do that using characters on our keyboard, but there might be more things that you want to do with a string. How can you take a string and make it uppercase? How can you take a string, make it lowercase? How can you take a string, count the number of characters that are in that string? There's a lot of things that we might want to do with the string. Like I can ask you how many characters are in my name. All right, if you write through, how many characters are there? It's obvious as 3, right? Because we've counted. But how can the computer program do that? How can you write a program to do that? That would take a lot of string functions. That would take a lot of understanding functions within strings for us to be able to do that. And that's what this concept will be covering. So let's start by defining some variables here. My name, the go-to variable that we define. My name equals, and in this time I'll make it a little bit more full. So what I'll do is I'll say through, comma, Louis, exclamation. All right, I'll give it just a lot of things, and I'll say my age, just so we have age in there as well, equals 30. All right, so now we have a string defined. Let's actually define this as a string, and I'll explain why a little bit later. So we have my name and my age. All right, so what if we want to go ahead and to print the very first character of my age? So if you want to ask me how many decades have I spent on the planet, or what decade am I currently in, right? If you take the first value of my age, that will tell you, yeah, I'm in my 3rd decade, right? Because first decade in my 10 years old, second decade in my teens, now in the 3rd decade. All right, so that's 3. So I can go ahead and say print. So what I want to do is to print just this first value given any string. Can you print the first value? All right, and in this case now I'll be leveraging string functions. So what I can do here is I can say my age. All right, and the string function that we're using is simply using this symbol, this square curly bracket. I don't know how to call that. And then we can give the number 0. All right, and let's run this. And so there you have it. It prints 3. All right, it comes here and it says the very first string, the very first character that it sees in here, and this is what this is asking, is 3. All right, let me emphasize something here, because some people will look at this and say, but through this this is kind of interesting. Why did you put 0 but then it's printing 3? Shouldn't this be 1? Right, let's do 1 and see. Right, 1 prints us what? 0. All right, so I hope the light bulb is coming up there, right? And the reason is, in Python and in programming, for the most part, a lot of programming languages, you start counting from 0, right? You start counting 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So if you say 0, then you're asking for position 1. If you say 1, you're asking for position 2. So just always remember that in programming, you always start counting from 0. So if you want to say give me the very first thing, you're saying give me thing at position 0. All right, so that's just a convention within programming, and then it's giving you the first character within my age. So this is the very first built-in function within string that we can look at, but there is more. Right, let's look at my name here. If I ask you how many characters are in my name the way I've written it out here, all right, we can go ahead and try to count, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just gonna take a long time for us to count that all out. All right, so in this case we can still use a string function, and there are many string functions that we can use. In this case I'll say print. All right, I know I'm trying to count my name. All right, that's the number of characters that I want to count in my name, but now the function that I'm going to use is called length. Right, so I'm going to say print the length of my name. So what this function does is it goes into my name and it counts the number of characters that are in there. All right, so there are 11, and we can actually verify that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, it counts spaces too. So let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that's what we've gotten here. Imagine you had a text, a big essay in your that you need to write for school, and that essay was, the teacher said, don't make this essay more than 1,000 words. All right, or it shouldn't have more than 1,000 characters. There's no way for you to manually go in and count it. But if you have Python, you can simply write a Python program now that you know how to write Python, and you can count that, right? So this is not just trivia stuff. This is stuff that you can actually put and apply and use in your life. All right, so this can be very, very powerful. Now, the next one that we can look at is, let me actually make my name to be like this, right? And then like this. So let's print here, let's print my name just to see what it does. All right, so if you see I'm printing my name, if you notice there is a space here that starts with printing my name. All right, there is a space here, and then at the end there is a space here too as well. All right, that space is coming because my string starts, there is a space, and there is a space here. But maybe that's what we have, but that's not what I want to print. I want to print my name without those spaces available in there, right? How can I remove those spaces? So if you were writing a program and you had this input coming in and it has all the spaces, how can you take that as a string and strip out, right? And strip out those spaces, right? And then that just kind of gives us an idea of what that function will be called. And it's called the stripping function within for strings, right? So I would say print. Now in this case, I'll say my name, all right? And then what I want to do is I'll say dot strip. All right, so it's gonna take my name and it's gonna strip out all those superfluous spaces within the name from that I don't want. All right, so if I go ahead and run this program, so now what you see, I hope you can see the difference. Here, there is no space at the beginning, there's no space at the end. It stripped out the spaces from the beginning at the end of the string, right? Not in the middle of the string. That space is still there. So that doesn't affect that, right? Whereas this one, there is a space here and there is a space here. This one, once I've stripped it out, there is no more spaces. So now, if you had strings that were coming in and they had some spaces at the beginning and some at the end, they were not consistent, you can use this function to make sure that your program is consistent. It's always consistent, all right? Because if I go ahead and I do length of this, just bear with me to make this really quick and run this just so you see something. All right. So what you notice here is, here I'm printing length of my name 13, but here I'm printing length of my name that has been stripped, but it's just 11. So that tells us that the counts are different. All right, so stripping really removes those spaces at the end of your string. So very, very, very powerful. Now we can see that my name here is some has upper cases, some has lower cases. Maybe there is a requirement that once you print somebody's name, we always have to print that name in uppercase, right? If you give somebody a name, I want to always make sure that name is printed in uppercase. How can we do that, right? We can leverage a function now called upper, right? So we go my name, right? And the function upper, you can see once I hit dot and I type in upper, it's gonna take this string and it's gonna make it all uppercase. All right, so if you have any string and you wanted to print it uppercase, this takes it and it prints it into uppercase, and this is what we're seeing here. And if I can do uppercase, guess what? We can equally take any string and we can print it as, you guessed it right, lower. All right, so now we have a lowercase. All right, so now it prints as upper, this prints as lower. So that's one other string function that we can use. Now let's say I have this string again, and instead of just printing uppercase, lowercase, finding number of characters, the length of a string and such, all right, stripping it, maybe I want to replace specific characters. If you give me a string, I want to take and replace every F that we have in that string with a different character, say D. All right, again, string functions give us the ability to do that. So all I can do here is I come back and I say my name and I say dot replace. All right, and then we can say replace F. Well, let's not do through, let's say F, and then we want to replace that with D. All right, So what do you think will happen, right? If you just take a look at it, so where do I have F? I don't have F. I have F, so it's gonna replace that with a D. So that's all, right? So gonna find one F, is gonna replace it with a D. So my new string should be something like Drew Lewis. All right. So if I go ahead and run that, voila. All right. It walks through every character in the string, and if it sees a character that matches what you want, then it replaces that character with whatever value that you've specified. All right. Let's say I didn't want to replace just a single character. I actually want to replace entire words, right? I wanted to replace the entire through with day, right? We can still do that. It's gonna move, and if it finds that, it replaces it with whatever you've asked it to replace with. All right, so now it says Nde Lewis. So you can either replace single specific characters, or you can replace blocks of characters, or actually entire words. All right, so this gives us, it just moves through that string and says, yep, I find through here, replace it with Nde, right? And then it moves, nothing else, and then that's it, right? If you're just replacing F, you can like find F and replace that, and if it moves, it's nothing else, it doesn't, it keeps going. So that's one way we can find and replace things within strings. So again, just to put this into context, just imagine that you are writing a very long essay, and everywhere in that essay, instead of spelling New York in the essay, right, you made a mistake and you spelled it as new instead of spelling New York, you made it and spelled it as New York, right? Something like that. Some error like this in your essay. Now you can bring that into Python, write a program, even if your essay is 1,000 or 10,000 pages long, and say scan through all of this. If you find any New York, replace it with New York, right? And then voila, you write the Python program that can do that for you. That's how powerful these things can be. All right, let's continue with some other functions. Let's say we wanted to take this first name. Let me take out the spaces just for simplicity. Louis. All right, and so we have through Louis. Now I know through is my first name, Louis, middle name, but I want to separate them. I want to print them out as two different things. How can Python do it for us? So instead of just making it as one string, I want to take this string and actually split it and actually break it up, right? Or split it, as we say, right? So splitting, as you know, if you say splitting, then it kind of just makes sense what that function will sound like. So here we'll be using the splitting function. So instead of replace, we're gonna be doing dot split. All right, now I am trying to split that string into pieces, but what should I see to know that I should split the string here? All right, so you have to tell it, the character, that if it sees, it knows that that's where it should split the string. So now I'm telling it, print my name, split it. If you see comma, then make sure that the next thing after that is a new string. So if I run this code, all right, what is provided now, you see the output is different, right? The output here is something called like an array. If you're not familiar with that, we'll talk about that in future videos. But that's just a data type as well, a data structure. So it's printed out through, and it's printed out Louis as a split. All right. Imagine that let's add more commas here. Imagine that I had Lou, comma is, right? So guess what? It's gonna split this into 3 parts, right? It's gonna see through, split it, see Lou, and then goes there, sees the comma, split it, and then is gonna split. So we should expect to see 3 things now here. All right, so you can now start being able to take strings and then use the splitting function, and then go ahead and split that string into many subparts, right? Into many tokens, or into many little pieces, and now you can use these pieces for other things. All right, so guys, so there you have it. These are some of the functions that are available within Python for working with strings. There's a whole lot of them. I'm sure you might be asking, but Fro, you've just gone through all of this, you seem to just know all of them, and you're giving me examples, upper, lower. How do I know what functions are available within Python for strings for me to use, right? And the beauty of it is, especially, and this is why working with an IDE is, or something like PyCharm is very powerful, because it has something called IntelliSense. Let me write that, IntelliSense. It can suggest functions for you automatically. So if I don't know what function to use, for example, and you're just trying to say what functions are available for me to work with a string, right? Just come to that string variable name, right? And then you notice I'll say dot, because when you use a dot, you're trying to call a function. Now what you see here is it's actually listing all the functions that are available for working with strings here for me. All right, like length, which we just use. You'll see a lot more: right split, right strip, split line, swap case, title case, translate, zfill, is decimal, is numeric, count, center, upper, replace. So in case you're just kind of wondering, and this is true for string or any other thing that you're working with, and you don't know what functions are available, if you're using an IDE like PyCharm, you can always leverage this capability to be able to get access to the list of functions that are available, right? Like I said, this is called IntelliSense. I don't know if I spelled that correctly, IntelliSense, something like that. All right. If I was typing my code in Notepad, right? If I just went ahead and open Notepad, we mentioned a little bit earlier, you can always type code in Notepad, right? But the problem with Notepad is, for one, it doesn't have IntelliSense. Like if I say string dot what, right? It's not showing me anything, right? It doesn't have that IntelliSense for me to use. And that's why programmers would turn to use dedicated IDEs for writing their code, as opposed to just writing it in Notepad, right? If you know how to write in Notepad and you know all the functions in your head, fine and good for you, right? At some point, programmers can get to that point, but given the amount of functions, the amount of things that are available out there, right, it might be hard to remember everything. And that's why IDEs like PyCharm or Visual Studio Code or whatever it is you're using, right, can give you some of those capabilities to use IntelliSense and to see functions that are available within that language that you might not be aware of. So this brings us to the end of this lecture 1.3.4, but it also takes us into the next lecture, which will be lecture 1.3.5. And 1.3.5 we'll talk about stringing together string functions. All right, I kind of did it a little bit earlier, this concept of stringing together string functions. I didn't really explain it when I did it in the previous concept, but in this particular concept 1.3.5, we are going to see examples of how we can take functions and string multiple functions together, what exactly that means. So to work on this, I'm gonna go ahead, comment out this code. All right, and just to get a template to work with, I'm gonna copy. Let's copy this, right, where I give my name. Let's just keep it as true, and my age is 30. All right, and we can print my name again. Very, very basic for us to start. Now, what if I want to check if my name is uppercase? All right, so I can say is my name dot is upper. All right, so what this does is it's gonna check and say, is this uppercase? And the answer, of course, will be no, right? Because this is uppercase, but right now it's not uppercase. So if I run this, I should expect to see false, because it's not uppercase. So I'm using this function for strings to say, is it uppercase? Well, my name is not uppercase, so it gives me false. Now, I can come in here and I can write a function that says print my name, all right, to the upper, right? So this function would take and print my name as upper. So if you run this, it should see my name as upper. Now, what I want to do is I want to actually check now after this, that is this uppercase, right? We can do it. So far we've been calling functions one by one, where I'll say my name dot, and then I call the function, and that's about it. But in Python, you can actually string together functions, and that's where the title of this concept is coming from, stringing together string functions. All right, so what does that mean, stringing together string functions? Here, I can now come and say, okay, my name dot upper. All right, so this is the end of it. Then I can say, now that this has taken my name and made it upper, I am going to then put a dot, and then now I can check that is it upper. All right, so I'm taking, you can take one function, call a function, take the result of that, call the next function, take the result of that, call the next function. So you're literally stringing together a bunch of functions. All right, so that's what we mean by stringing together functions. And as you start working with a lot of functions, right, this is something that you might naturally be doing, right? Take a number, change it to upper, change it to check the string, check the length, and you can then go ahead and string together a lot of functions. So let's run this and see. So here, is it upper, false? Here, is it upper, true? Because we've changed it to upper. So let's see. We should see false and true. And there we have it, false and true. So there is really no limit to how many functions I can say. Is this lower dot lower? Just bear with me. Well, that because I would do the lower here. If I can type, I should go slow. Lower. All right. Is it upper? I've said upper, I've said lower, and then is it upper? False. So it's gonna be false and false. All right, so you can string as many functions as you want, but you just have to keep in mind what is it you're doing. That way you know that it starts from the left side. It's gonna take to upper, then take it to lower, and then check is it upper, right? Well, it's not gonna be upper because it's currently lower. So it always starts the order of operations starts from the left side and works your way. So we start from the left, and it evaluates this expression, it evaluates this function, then evaluates this one, right? And at each time, if you're changing, it takes the results from the previous evaluation and passes it to the next function. Very, very important. If this is the first time you're hearing about functions, don't worry, we're going to be covering this and diving a lot more in other concepts that are further down along in this course. So something very, very powerful to be aware of. All right, so now this takes us into our next concept within this lecture, which will be concept number 1.3.6. 1.3.6. And what is 1.3.6? 1.3.6 will talk about checking for strings, for string data types. All right, trivia stuff, but very important that we're aware of. If I just give you something, some value, can you check that is that a string or is it not a string? All right, and let's comment out this particular one and then get ready for this one. All right, so let me start with this value. So if I take this and I have my name equals through my age equals 30, all right, and I want to check, is this a string? Is this a string, right? And yeah, you can tell me yes, it's a string, but let's not just go subjectively. Let's have the program check it for us and tell me that is this a string. Somebody gave me something, I want to check, is this a string, right? So that we're 100% sure that this is a string. So what we can do here is there is a function that we're going to use, and just bear with me here for a second. So we're going to go ahead and check if this that is provided to us is a string. And the way that we can do that is we use the type function, and we can simply say print the type and the variable that we're working with, and it's going to tell us, is this a string? And we can say now run this and see what it tells us, right? It says class string. So this confirms to us that yes, indeed this is a string. All right, if I go ahead and I print my age and says, is that a string? Right, yes, it's a string. So both of them are strings. Now what if I change this and remove this quotes and I print, is that a string? Right, I'm sure you can guess this by now. Nope, this is not a string. Why? Because it doesn't have the quotations surrounding it. So instead that's an int. All right, so you can always check if something is a string or not. But let's actually go in and say checking for strings and patterns here. All right, because we can check for strings this way. Now, what if I give you a series of characters and I say check if the occurrence of a particular string within that? Let's say, let me just write something here. So Fru is a developer. The product called Really AI is amazing and available at on, let's keep this short, Readly.com. All right, so this is an extension that I built for Google Chrome Store, and I highly encourage everyone to check out the extension and use. So Readly.com. Now this is something that we have. Now I want to check if the word Really, let me actually say, instead of this h, say my check equals Really. Right, so I want to say, given this word, check for me if there's any occurrence of this word called Really within that. All right, and this is what we want to figure out. So it's Really in that word. All right, so how do we go ahead and figure it out? So strings provide another function that we can use. So what we can say, very simple, is check if Really is in my name. So the way I'm just sounding, in my name, right? So very straightforward. It's gonna check, is this, does this occur in this text, right? Does Really occur in my name? All right, and then we can go ahead and print my check. And what do you expect? So it should say true, right? Because yeah, it does occur. Right, let's not print the type of the class, let's actually print the result. All right, so I'm checking that, does it occur, does Really occur in this text, right? So remember, my name is, I've written out let's actually change this for my name, so that, say, my text is that, so it makes a lot more sense. All right, so my text equals that, and then you can say check, does Really, this word Really occur in my text? And the answer is yes, because it shows up in there. All right, so imagine you had a text of an essay, right, of many words, and you want to check that, is there a particular word that exists within that essay, like, and then you can go ahead and write your Python code for it to check that. So this could be very powerful. All right, another thing that we can do too is checking that does something like this exist there? And the answer, of course, would be nope, false, right? It doesn't exist. So again, you can do a lot of checks within that. Let's say, let's write the text here and say wow, right? So do we want to check that wow is not in this, right? So we can also do that. We can say, is wow not in that thing, right? And we can say that, and it will say true, right? Because this text wow doesn't exist anywhere in here, right? If I say it's a text www dot not in that, well, that's false, because I can see www dot here, I mean www here. All right, so then that would return a false for me. So let's go ahead and run this, and there you have it. It gives us false. So there are a lot of things that you can do with strings. Somebody can now give you a string or an entire paragraph and tell me, check if this word occurs anywhere, right? And you can use something like this for it. Just imagine you can build yourself a plagiarism system, all right, to take your essays from your friends, and now you can write a program. You can write a program to check if words from one essay are showing up in another essay. That might get a little bit sophisticated, right? I'm sure there are more advanced ways to do it, but if you really go down to the rudimentary level, you can write a Python program that would take one essay and tell me if a lot of words from this essay are showing up in this other essay or are not in this other essay. And those are the kind of things that you can build once we master concepts like this, being able to check strings. All right, so this takes us into our next concept. Let me copy this, and the next concept will be 1.3. dot 7. And the idea for that concept, just to make sure that we're looking at the right one, will be string arrays and slicing. String arrays and slicing. So we're going to be working with arrays and strings and being able to slice strings. So let me comment this out, and then we're going to start from the very beginning here. So as always, we're going to start with my name. So let's give my name equals through Louis. All right, so that's my name. Very simple. Very simple stuff. We're simply taking a variable, and well, that's why this is complaining, equals to. All right, so we're taking my name equals through Louis. Very, 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 very simple stuff. Earlier we saw that we can actually print the first character of my name. All right, so we can print let's say we want to print the very, very first character of my name, which is through here. And what we can do for this is just simply to say print my name. And we saw this a little bit earlier, my name. And then how do we print the very, very first character of it? We say this, comma, first character, 0. All right, run that. So F, right? If I want the second character, which should be R, 1. Again, why? Because in programming, we start counting from 0. So very basic stuff, very easy to follow. Now, what instead of just printing the first character or the second character, let's keep it that way. We want to print from, say, between the second character, the 5th character to the 7th character. All right, so we can also do that. All right, so I can say print that. Now, instead of just putting this as the first character, I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'll say 5 to 9. All right. Oops, not that. So I want to print from 5 to 9. All right. And we'll see what the results looks like, and I'll explain it a little bit. Why are we complaining here? Let's make sure that we get the syntax correct. Yep, that syntax is off. So we're saying print from 5 to 9. That's what the syntax looks like. All right. So 5 starts from this, 9, so I should actually have to 10. All right, so I can include the last character. So it's, you see, it's taking this entire string, my name, and it started printing something from position 5 to position 10. And again, we remember that we start counting from 0. The reason why I counted 6, but then I wrote 5 was because I counted from 1 to 6, but I just knew that I would just have to minus 1 in my head to start at 5, right? An easy way for you would just be to count from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so this is 5. So that's why we start from there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so 5 to 10, which is minus 1. You might have to play around with it to get the exact positions based on what you're doing. But this is a syntax for us to go ahead and to start slicing strings, right? Because I'm taking a string and I'm slicing a piece of it that I want, and I'm able to print that to the screen. So something very, very powerful. And for those of you out there that are paying attention, we don't always have to slice just one way, right? We can slice the positive way, but we can also slice backwards, right? We can also slice in a different direction. And how do we do that? We can actually use negative indexes in here. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's do 9 to let's do 9 to 6. I think that one makes sense. All right, so you see, basically what this is doing is it's slicing. So I'm going from minus 9 to minus 6. Let me actually do something that will be better. Let's do minus 5. oh, actually just do -1 to minus Louis, so -6. Yeah, that's fine. There you go. All right, so this is printing Louis. The reason why I counted on my fingers was I wanted to see how many digits in my name. I should know that Louis is 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, but then I have to give one space because I'm going one space ahead, so 6. So what this is saying is -1 is well, because we're doing minus, right, we're simply starting from this way and counting backwards. All right, if you're doing your slicing from positive, say like 5 to 10, is simply saying start from 5, go all the way to 10. All right, but if I say -1, I'm simply saying start from the right side, -1, which starts here, and then go back 6 places. So I'm going -1, and then I'm going back to position 6, so it'll be -6 backwards this way. All right, and that's why we're able to print out Louis. All right, so you can slice forward, moving things forward, and you can slice backwards, right? And this actually makes sense. So if you had a text that was huge, right, in your string, you don't want to necessarily start from the forward going back. Maybe there was just a piece of it at the very end that you want to take. Guys, you can go ahead and use something like this to slice that string. Here is a challenge that I'll give everyone. Let's say my email equals Louis. Just bear with me here for a second. Louis at gmail.com. All right, and you wanted to write a program that would check whether my email is .com or .edu. All right, because I can have this as louis.edu. all right, so let's say we have my email, and the reason why I'm showing this is to make a case why doing something like this could be very, very important. All right, Louis Nde, right, and then this one is .com. All right, so what do you notice? If I was to write a string that says count say count from like maybe 12 this way, and then from 12 to 12 to 13, 14, 15, 12 to 15, so you can extract this .edu, right? And then I program 12 here and I program 15 here, and then I get a new string that looks like that. That program will not work, right? Because it's gonna count from 12. In this case, 12 kind of made sense, right? Because 12 ended here, but if I'm counting 12 here, it's gonna start from here, right? So it's gonna miss, it's not gonna be able to extract .com for me. So in this case, I would want my program to start from here and go 3 backwards, because in every email that will be consistent, right? .com, for the most part, all right? You might want to make it start from the left and then go backwards until you find a dot, and then that's what you want to extract. So there are ways that you can write the program to do things like that, right? Where you can take an email and be able to extract what that last domain is. And using things like this string splitting, you can be able to implement something like that. So the challenge that I want for you guys, if you're following along, is to write a program that can take a string like that, right, like an email specifically, and be able to extract that last part, right? You're gonna need the string splitting, but you might also need some other string functions, like finding the index of a particular value, right? Like, how do you find the index of a particular value? If I give you dot, can you tell me what position dot shows up in a string? Then you can take that position and then use it to split your string. So that's something that you can do. That will be a challenge if you're following along. But this should give us some very, very, very basic rudimentary ideas around working with strings, arrays, and being able to slice. Basically, what we're doing here is this is like an array. It's treating this as like an array, and it's simply just counting the positions. If you're not familiar with what an array is, again, in future concepts, we're going to be covering arrays more in depth. All right, so this takes us to our next piece of the lecture, which is concept 1.3.8. So a lot of concepts for strings, guys, a lot of concepts. And I understand, just bear with me, because strings are so important that every programming that you do, more than likely you're going to be coming across strings, and it's very important that we know how to be able to manipulate strings inside out, so that if you have any challenge, if it's strings, you know how to handle that challenge. All right, so 1.3.8 we'll talk about string placeholders. All right, so that's what we're going to be covering in this particular concept, string placeholders. So let's go down here for a second. What does it mean, string placeholders? So as always, we're going to start with some examples here. My first name, I'll do that this as my first name equals through my last name equals Louis, and then let's throw in my age equals 30. All right, now earlier on we saw that if I have something like that, I can use string concatenation. Let me zoom in here for a second. And what string concatenation 1.3.1 in lecture concept number 1.3.1, we were able to take hello and then just put concatenate the values and was able to print out something. All right, so if you go back to that particular concept that we covered, that would make sense. So we can do something very similar here, right? I want to print my name with greetings. I want to go ahead and print my name with greetings. But how can we do that in an easy way? So what we can do here with string placeholders is to say my introduction or my greetings, let's say my greetings equals to, now I'm going to use the concept of string placeholders. So I'm going to write out what I want to greet. So I'm going to say my name or my last name is, all right, let's just keep a space in there and we'll put that space by doing this. All right, so that's how we're going to keep that space there. And then we're going to say comma, my first name is, and we're going to do this space like that and we'll keep it. All right, and we'll say I am, we're going to do it like that. All right, and then we're going to say years old. Okay, so here's what we've done. We've defined these greetings that we need to print on the screen, and I've put certain things in here in these curly brackets, and I've said these are placeholders, right? But placeholders for what? Placeholders for values that we want to print. All right, so now let's go ahead and take advantage of these placeholders by actually printing something. So we're gonna go now to the screen and we're gonna print out something. All right, we're gonna say print. And now what do we want to print? We want to print my greetings. All right, but we're going to introduce something new. We're going to say dot format. All right, so now we're going to format that, and this function, this string function is called dot format, allows us to pass certain arguments that will be used to fill the placeholders. All right, and what's those arguments? So we ask for my last name, my first name, and my age. All right, so now what happened was I defined this string, I put in placeholders here, 3 placeholders. Now I'm printing my greetings, which is this. Then I'm saying dot format, and then I'm passing 3 arguments. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna take my last name and it's gonna fit it into this placeholder. My first name, it fits it into this placeholder. My age, it fits that into this placeholder. All right, and that's how the string placeholders does actually work. So if I run this, it should greet me by my last name is Louis, my first name is Fru, and I am 30 years old. All right, so let's give it a try. But before we run that, let's go ahead and close out this previous concepts. So let's run this. Voila, runs like a charm. All right, so here we have my last name is Louis. That's my last name because that's what I'm passing in here. My first name is Fru. That's my first name because I'm passing my first name as the second one. My age is 30 because it's passing that 30 into the placeholders. So very, 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 very important. All right. Now you might be saying, but what if I want to actually change the order of the way I pass things? All right, you're still able to do that. Let me just copy copy this, make a copy of this. All right, you can actually change the order of the way you pass things here. All right, so keeping is the same. I'm gonna say my last name is 1, my first name is 0, 0, 1, 2, and then my age is 2. All right, let's try that. So if I run this, so let's see what the second line prints. It's gonna be wrong. It says my last name is Fro, my first name is Louis, and I'm 30 years old. But that's wrong. Why? Because now I'm forcing this to look at this list of parameters that I'm passing here and to use them in a specific order. So what it's saying is that, all right, my last name 1. So go here, take the thing that is 1 and put it in here. So we have, if you know, we're counting from 0 in Python. So this is position 0, this is position 1. So it says take the thing at position 1 and put it in here. All right, and then this says, oh, take the thing at position 0 and put it in here. So this will be position 0. And then this says take the thing at position 2 and put it in here. All right, but that's a problem, right? Because in this case, the thing at position 1 is not last name. The thing at position 1 is first name. So I should actually switch this around. So I should actually switch this that way, right? It now matches what my program is expecting. So it's saying print my last name from position 1, and position 1 holds my last name, right? First name from position 0, and position 0 holds first name. And then age, of course, from position 2, and that's held by my age. So this will print a sentence that makes sense in terms of what we expect. All right, so even though the positions of the inputs are different, we write this is last name, first name is last name, age is the same. We can mix this up the way we want, but you just have to make sure that it matches what you're doing, right? If you're going with this approach where you expect everything to come in the order in the way you want, you can do it this way. All right, if you're going with this approach where you're actually forcing and indicating what placeholder you want to use, all right, you just have to make sure that you do it consistent. But so to some people, this is a more beautiful way to write out and to print out strings like this, rather than coming and doing what we did in 1.3.3, I believe, or 1.3.2, where we were actually, or 1.3.1 even, where we were actually printing and concatenating strings this way, right? You certainly have both ways to do it, right? You can just simply manually concatenate the strings, but if you start getting to more advanced scenarios, it might make sense to actually format your strings this way. It might be a lot more easy to manage and to handle. All right. And one of the reasons why you might be asking, but why could I do it this way? So imagine that I was actually manually concatenating my strings everywhere, and then this variable name changed. Instead of my last name, it changed to my American last name, something like that. All right, then everywhere, if I was manually hand coding and concatenating things, I would have to go and replace that variable name everywhere. But here, you know, if I'm just doing placeholders, all I just need to do is change my variable name, and the placeholder picks it, right? So it gives you some flexibility, and it gives you some control. So very, very important concept. Now, very good. This takes us into our next piece of the concept that we need to learn, our next learning concept, which will be still on strings 1.3.9. We've talked a lot about strings here today. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to copy this. No, just put that as a placeholder. And then I'm going to end that concept. So the next concept will be 1.3.9. And in this case, we'll be talking about Boolean strings. All right, so that's what we're going to be talking about within this particular concept. Boolean strings, very important, very, very powerful concept. So let's take a look at Boolean strings. We've seen some ideas around this before, but basically Boolean, we saw earlier, is if I give you something, can you check if it's true or false? Basically what Boolean is. So let's say, let's start with my name equals Fro, and I want to check certain things about this my name. I want to say is print my name. Let's do dot is or numbers? All right, and what will be the answer? So is it all numbers? All right, check if all characters are numbers, but that's not the case. It's all numbers. Check if all characters are numbers. Oh yeah. All right, let's actually do 30. Just bear with me here. Sometimes these things. All right. All right, so that's one function that we can use. Let me go to the next one here. This is, let's do some more checks on the string. Let's do this one is alpha. Where is that alpha? All right. So true. Let's continue. So there's a whole lot of checks that you can do, and these checks are just simply giving true or false. Let's check is a digit. All right. In this case, we should see a false. All right, because this is not all digits. But if I change this to digits, all right, this last one should be true. Everything else should be false. Well, this should be true still, but this is false because it's not alphanumeric. All right, so this is true. All right, so there you have it. You can go ahead and play. There are many more functions. There is one to check if it's title case, which in this case it should be true because that's actually title. All right, so that should be true. But if I change that to that, it's not title case anymore. All right, so I can see that to be false. I can go down. There's a whole list of functions that I have available in here, and where I'm actually getting those from, guys, you can see, you can check if it's title, upper, check if there's space, if it ends with s, if it starts with a particular character. There's just a whole list of things. Check if all are chars, all right, so very powerful concepts that you can use, right? So this very first one that was kind of behaving a funny way is basically checking if it's all chars, which comes true if there are no spaces. But since I have a space, it's a false. If I take out my space, that one is a true, and that's where it seems to be behaving a little bit strange at the beginning. That I thought that it was strange, but it's actually behaving the right way. All right, so guys, there you have it. This brings us to the end of this particular lecture. Very powerful. Strings are something powerful that as a programmer, as a developer, as a Python engineer, you should be very well familiar with. To summarize, we've gone through a lot of concepts. Let me actually summarize from here. We've gone through a lot of concepts, right? You can certainly agree it's a lot of content to go through. So we are still in module 1, which talks about Python basics. This is lecture 1.3 that talks about strings specifically, and within that lecture there are many concepts. So here we have concept for module 1, lecture 3, concept 0 is working with strings, and then we went to string concatenations, then we went to string formatting, we went to printing strings with double quotes, very important. We saw how we can use many built-in functions within strings to manipulate uppercase, lowercase, and such. We saw how we can string together many string functions, where you apply a function, then apply a function to the result, and then apply a function to the result. So very powerful. We saw how we can check if a given input is a string, and also we saw how you can check if a particular string exists within a bigger string. So important. We saw string arrays. You can look at positions positive going forward, or you can look minus from the end going backwards. All right, we also saw placeholders, where you can put placeholders within strings and be able to leverage that. And then at the very end, we saw a lot of Boolean functions that are available to check for conditions, true or false, on strings, right? Is it uppercase? Is it a title? Does it have numeric values, right? Does it start with a particular character? we can all check that using the functions that are available for us. All right, guys, so there you have it. This brings us to the end of this particular lecture. Very excited, very grateful for you to stick around with us. I hope this has given you a lot of skills, a lot of tools to go out and to be able to practice and hone in on your ability to work with strings. All right, guys, to be a programmer, these are the building blocks that we all need, and that's what we're going through step by step and putting this all together. In the next series of lectures, we're going to see how we can take all of these building blocks, bring them together, whether working with numbers, working with strings, working with user inputs, working with conditionals, working with loops, and we can bring that all together to go out and to start writing amazing programs, right? Maybe you want to build your next app, or maybe you just want to go through a class project. This should all be able to empower you to go out and to be able to achieve that. Programming is so amazing. I am so grateful and happy to be sharing this journey with you. I'm very excited, looking forward to our next lecture. And the next lecture coming up, depending on when you're watching this, it might be recorded already or it might still be in the works. It's gonna take us into casting. How can we cast things from one data type to another data type? It's gonna be very interesting to see. If I give you a string, can you take that string and cast it to an integer? If I give you an integer, can you take it and give me back a string? Those are certain concepts that are very important, and we're going to dive into them and cover those into our next lecture, guys. So thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Share this with somebody that might get value out of it. This has been Fro, your instructor for today, and I'll see you in our next lecture.